Hello people of the internet, it is Eclipse, and welcome to Melting Skies, Chapter 6. I will say, pretty big trigger warning that's listed in detail in the description. I recommend everybody look at it before starting this episode. Just wanted to put that quick disclaimer in there, check the description for the trigger, and let me know if there's a different way I should list triggers in the beginning. I'm not sure if it would be appropriate to list them in the description or in the title, or if I should say them beforehand, but this time I put it in the description. So just check the description, and once you've done that, we can dive on in. Without further ado, let's get into Melting Skies Chapter 6. It had been a full year since Rigian had passed his Hunters and Warriors assessment, along with his siblings. Minnow had been denied a second test to be both a hunter and a fighter. So for that year, she existed mostly in limbo, trying to keep up and improve her skills on her own, with help from Rigian when he had time to teach her. Patch explained hunting and fighting etiquette much better than her previous teacher, but there was still much to be learned without direct coaching. Throughout the year, she had been able to catch rabbits on occasion and contributed to the prey pile in her camp, as well as keeping herself fed, even though she mostly hunted alone, never being picked by patrols or hunting parties. Her efforts didn't seem to be recognized by anyone. Winter that year had been rough. Many of the storytellers and older warriors didn't make it as food was scarce and was saved for those that were younger. Rigian made certain Minnow was fed, as much as the others wanted her to pass with the elders. It was spring yet again, and Lavari had already given birth to her second litter to help repopulate the pack. If she was shy-spoken before, it seemed she had gone entirely mute now. She usually only reacted by nuzzling and sighing happily whenever Minnow tried to talk to her. Rigian, on the other hand, became a hybrid hunter and fighter within the top ranks. When winter the previous year came and passed, Petrum sadly died from an infection. Bora and Rigian dueled for who would take the position. In the end, Rigian became the pack's beta, showing the most resilience during the hard winter and took his title with pride. However, he always insisted Minnow call him by his name and not his rank. That day, not much hunting was needed, so Minnow took that opportunity to go running in the forest again. Spring and fall were really the only times she could do this, the springtime being her favorite season, as she was able to sense the life blooming all over the territory. During winter and summer, soul snares were constantly invading the land, and while Minnow knew that she most likely wouldn't die when she wasn't supposed to, she wasn't going to go running in the forest and ask for death. She overheard from a storyteller during winter that soul snares became more agitated during events of extremes. Winter and summer were the hottest and coldest seasons of the year, so soul snares became more aggressive and bolder during those times, crossing into pack territories to attack, just to return to dormancy during fall and spring. As she ran through the grass path she knew by heart now, she could barely hear a second set of paw steps running, following her, trying to hide the impact by timing it perfectly with hers. Whoever it was, they were downwind of her so she couldn't smell them, but she had a guess. She grinned as the paw steps got closer to hers. Then a heave as the paw steps suddenly stopped. Minnow took a quick guess and leapt to the left, spinning and facing the chaser as they landed.
Wow, Minnow, you're really getting better at dodging.
Rigian laughed merrily. Thank you, Rigian. I've been trying to work on my timing. Have you talked to Alpha about letting me retake my test yet? Minnow smiled as her tail wagged behind her. Rigian suddenly sounded nervous.
Well, I tried, but...
Minnow shook her head as her face fell a little, sighing. That's okay. I can't ask you to fight all my battles for me. Maybe I could try talking to him again.
I don't think that's a good idea, Minnow. Remember how angry he got last time?
Ridgeon squirmed at the thought.
If I were the alpha, you'd already be a hunter, if not a hybrid, considering you could probably hold your own in a fight now.
Minnow just sighed as the silence between them stretched on with the distant call of birds and insects in the trees. Despite that distant, peaceful call, Minnow could only really hear the constant shuffling in front of her. The air seemed to be getting denser around Ridgeon the longer he stayed there, shuffling from side to side. Well, if Alpha says no, there's not much else to it. Guess I'm just going to have to wait until you're Alpha. She smiled, but her tail stopped wagging as Ridgeon remained silent. Why wasn't he saying anything? Why was he acting so weird? Finally, after several awkwardly paced heartbeats, he spoke.
Well, that's the thing. Alpha said he would make a decision by tonight how to proceed with your situation.
Why did he sound so scared? Why had the bustling forest gone eerily quiet? But if he already said no, maybe he'll change his mind, Minnow smiled. Wouldn't that be a good thing? Ridgeon stayed quiet, and Minnow finally stopped smiling. You're not saying something. Spit it out. Ridgeon sighed.
Well, he said there was only one viable option for you in the pack. I know you could be a hunter or fighter, even an early storyteller, considering you survived a soul snare and being poisoned before you were even a trainee, but...
He sighed.
Alpha wants you to be a queen.
Minnow inhaled sharply as her stomach dropped. A ball of air and ice forming deep in her gut in mere moments.
I know it's not what you want, but we could figure this out. Together.
Ridgeon rested his muzzle on her shoulder like he always did, as Minnow's breathing grew quick. The forest suddenly felt cold, almost as cold as winter. The air wasn't moving. Everything was frozen. She didn't want to be a queen. A wolf assigned the job of queens was to be subjected to mating whenever the alpha, beta, or higher-ranking hunters and fighters felt productive to pass on their superior genes. The only way she was going to be a queen was if she ever felt true love for someone in the pack that she wanted to mate with. There were temporary queens who did just that and returned to their normal duties after nursing their pups to the trainee stage, sometimes even before that. Noxima was one of them. Minnow didn't want to spend the rest of her life being forced to lay down and take it whenever a high-ranking wolf felt like it, push out puppies, and then have to watch as they all passed their training assessments while she wasn't allowed to. She was snapped out of her thoughts as Ridgeon started grooming her back fur.
I'm sorry, Minnow, but we can figure this out. It's going to be okay.
He tried to soothe her as she leaned into him. She could feel her eyes burning as tears welled up slowly. I don't want to be a queen. That would be hell for me. Hersha and Lavari chose to be queens after hunting and fighting didn't interest them. I want to hunt. I want to fight. They know damn well I can. But they've already made up their minds about me. I don't even know why they would even want to. I'm blind. Wouldn't that pass on to my children? The dam broke as Minnow cried into Ridgeon, the ice slowly thawing away as his warmth helped her senses return to her, and grief spilled out her eyes and mouth.
I mean, your mother and father weren't blind, yet they produced you. I don't think it makes sense to think that your children would be blind. It's going to be okay, Minnow. Maybe you'll see the positives of it eventually. I mean, look at us. I'm the beta.
He sighed as Minnow shook. But you can't stop Alpha from mating with me. He's ranked above you. And you can't reasonably keep the hunters and fighters away all the time. And if I produce no puppies, you might lose your rank for doing it. Minnow threw her head back, trying to cease the waterfall flowing down her face.
Well, I wouldn't lose my rank if I were to mate with you.
Ridgeon rested his head on her as Minnow's ears flicked and her eyes snapped open. What? Minnow turned to look at Ridgeon, his words echoing in her mind as the silence started making Ridgeon's warmth dissipate.
Minnow, I've always cared for you.
Ridgeon's breath was warm on her cheek as he continued to groom her fur. Minnow's heart sank, feeling as cold and hard as a rock sinking to the bottom of the stream, sinking to the bottom of her body. No, please don't say it. Please don't say it. Minnow's mind pleaded with her best friend not to do this to her, but her mouth was frozen shut, unable to voice it.
I want to be your mate for life. I've always felt this way about you.
Minnow whimpered as the last of Ridgeon's warmth dissipated. She was alone, entirely alone. She clamped her mouth shut as her food tried to leap out her stomach. Something felt fundamentally wrong with this, something she couldn't even describe. The thought of mating with him made her stomach turn into a trampoline for a recently eaten lunch. Not just the fact that he was young enough that he wanted her to train him when he was a puppy, but the fact that he was technically her cousin and something else she couldn't quite put her paw on. Every fiber of her being didn't want this. She didn't want him to even touch her now. Her mouth managed to open with some effort. I don't feel the same way, Ridgeon. I'm sorry, I can't mate with you. Ridgeon's body grew tense next to her, and Minnow pulled away as the temperature and air around both of them changed.
But I'm the beta. I'm at the top of my game. I've done so much to try and help you.
Ridgeon's voice shifted from that of heartbreak to anger. He had never been cross with her, not like this. I know, but Ridgeon, this is wrong. Maybe if we both go to Alpha...
No!
Minnow staggered backward as Ridgeon interjected, taking a step toward her.
I'm the beta. You should do what I say. It's a female's duty. Now roll over.
Minnow's heart went from frozen in place to racing as her friend took another step toward her. No, I will not subject myself to the life of a glorified breeder. She stood her ground, the hair on the back of her flank rising as she faced Ridgeon. Ridgeon started to circle her, but she started circling him in turn, using one of the very tactics he had taught her to avoid being pinned.
I don't want to lose you, Minnow. I want to be with you.
You will not mate with me, Minnow snarled, feeling her heart burn as it shattered into blackened pieces. All those nice things you did for me, being my friend, teaching me to fight and hunt better, trying to get Alpha to treat me fairly, was that all just so that you could have your way with me? Ridgeon stopped pacing and straightened his posture, if the light sound of shuffling of his fur was any indication.
Minnow, I don't just think you're attractive. I like your resilience, your curiosity, the way you never give up. I like how you're always trying to find a way to be yourself. I feel like those parts of you would help the pack greatly. Why are you making this so hard? Do you not care for me at all?
Minnow reluctantly straightened her posture and relaxed her flanks. I love you, Ridgeon. I love you so much. But only as a friend. Do you understand that? Minnow gulped as Ridgeon took deep yet quick breaths, seemingly trying to calm himself.
No, I don't.
Before Minnow could say anything more, the sound of Ridgeon's paw steps rang out like a mountain cracking in two as he ran away from her, back towards the camp. The air started to pick up around Minnow, pulling her further into the forest. The sweet smell of the grass, the refreshing water, the mice and rabbits underfoot. It all felt very bittersweet to Minnow as she wandered in a field toward the end of the territory. Minnow, a distant voice called, except it wasn't coming from the camp this time. It was coming from beyond the border, as Minnow laid on a boulder that marked the edge of her pack's territory. She let her ears stand straight up, listening for whatever might be out there. There was that sweet smell again, and made her stomach growl, and her head turn to locate it as she took in deep whiffs of whatever it was. It smelled like something she could eat, but also a little like the grass she was currently trying to groom out of her tail again. It smelled rich and full, like something was bursting at the seams with nutrients and energy, just waiting for her. Minnow laid out on that rock all day, listening to distant, muffled voices that somehow knew her name, feeling the wind and sun against her fur, and smelling that sweet smell that always reached her when the wind traveled a certain way, hitting her from the side as she faced what she guessed was a rock cliff, judging by the unstable hard ground under her feet just on the other side of the border. She took breaks to hunt for herself, but couldn't muster going to the camp until her fur grew cold. The sun was down. It was night. The birds had stopped making noise a long time ago, and now only the wind and the slight stir of bugs accompanied her as she wandered back to the camp, taking detours and hunting when she sensed prey. She nearly cried when she fully realized she didn't want to go back. But it was her home. She didn't have any other. She finally paced back to camp with a rabbit in her jaws, padding as quietly as possible to the prey pile, and returned to her den, possibly for the last time. So friends, that was the end of Melting Skies Chapter 6. Let me know what you think of the illustrations and heck, even the characters, in the comments below, and I'll see you for Melting Skies Chapter 7 real soon. See you on the other side.